Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here on NASA TV. We're about to conduct a briefing right after the flight readiness review of the return of Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley to planet Earth, completing the SpaceX Demo 2 mission and the first test flight of the crewed commercial vehicle. I'm joined by an esteemed set of panelists here from across the country to discuss what came out of the flight readiness review, as well as from what's to come, both from NASA and from SpaceX. Joining us today for this briefing is NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. Here in Houston, Texas, we have Steve Stitch, manager of NASA's Commercial Crew Program, and Joel Montalbano, the manager of the International Space Station Program. And then all the way from SpaceX, Benji Reed joining us, Director of Crew Mission Management. Thanks to our esteemed panelists for joining us today. We're going to be opening up with some comments from each of our panelists before getting to questions, taking questions from our phone bridge. Make sure you call in. To submit a question, make sure you dial *1, and we'll be able to address them right after comments from our panelists. We're going to start our comments first from NASA Administrator Jim Bridenstine. Administrator Bridenstine, take it away.
Well, thank you so much, Gary. As you just mentioned, the return flight readiness review is complete, and the teams, the NASA team and the SpaceX team, everybody remains go for return, and we cannot wait to get Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley back to Earth. But of course, we have some weather pending, and so just like when we launched, we had some challenges with weather. We may have that again, but the first opportunity remains August 2nd, and we look forward to seeing if that's going to be within the realm of what is possible. A couple of things that are important. I'm here at the Kennedy Space Center right now. Tomorrow, we're launching a mission to Mars, the Mars 2020 vehicle with the Perseverance rover inside and Ingenuity, a helicopter that is attached to the rover. So we have a lot of things happening right here at the Kennedy Space Center. We're excited about that launch tomorrow morning. And of course, while we were doing the press conference for the Mars launch, we had a barge pull into the bay here, and the barge, of course, had a stage adapter for the SLS rocket, which, of course, is going to launch Artemis 1, an uncrewed Orion capsule around the moon next year. So many great things happening here at NASA. I want to say thank you to the SpaceX team and, of course, to the NASA team for making Demo 2 possible. It is not over yet. Entry, descent, and landing is ahead of us, but certainly we're very excited to get Bob and Doug.
Crew team. As Jim said, we had our flight readiness review this morning for landing. We really took the time to review the vehicle on orbit. You know, it's been on orbit for about 63 days. We talked pre-flight about having the capability to go 120 days. The systems on Dragon are doing very well. The spacecraft is very healthy. We went through all the systems, any issues or problems that we saw on orbit in terms of how the vehicle responded to the thermal environment and the different parts of space. We reviewed the readiness of the ops teams and also the recovery teams, and so we came out of the FR with a go to proceed toward undock, deorbit, and landing. Today, I'll talk a little bit about the landing operation and kind of how things will unfold over the next few days, and a little bit about decision making. If we could show the graphic first, we have 7 landing sites that we're going to be using, as Jim said, for the landing as early as Sunday. You can see these sites. They're spread across Florida, Pensacola, Panama City, Tallahassee, and Tampa. Those are Pensacola was there before, but we added the new sites of Panama City, Tallahassee, and Tampa since the initial flight readiness review, and then Jacksonville, Daytona, and the Cape on the eastern coast of Florida. We added the Daytona site after the flight readiness review and did a bunch of work between NASA and SpaceX to ensure that site was ready. Over the next few days, we'll be carefully looking at the weather and getting ready for the undock and deorbit and landing. Just a little bit of the sequence for the earliest opportunity would be to undock on Saturday. The crew would wake up about 7:30 Central Time here in Houston. we would close the hatches about 4:30 on Saturday and undock around 6:35 p.m. Central. And we have about an hour or so undock window. And then that would set us up for our first landing opportunity on Sunday, deorbiting around 12:56 Central Time on Sunday, and then landing at about 1:48 p.m. Central. We're going to watch the weather very carefully. You know, we have a series of sites and many days in the future. If we don't undock on Saturday to come home on Sunday, we would move that undocking to Monday. So we'll watch this tropical storm that's probably going to form. It's a tropical area of disturbed weather right now. Looks like it may be coming into the Florida area. And we'll kind of take it day by day. We have decision points and weather briefings at about 24 hours prior to undock. Then at around 6 hours prior to undock, when we start to bring some cargo over from the space station, and then 2.5 hours prior to undock. So we'll have to evaluate the weather each day and just see how things unfold. As Jim said, you know, this is a test flight, and we're going to take our time to come home. We have plenty of opportunities here in August, and we're in no hurry to come home. We've completed all the objectives really for the mission while we were docked. We figured out if 4 crew could live in Dragon, habitability demo. We completed all those objectives while docked. And so now is the right time to bring this vehicle back and then start the processing of this vehicle, which will go forward and fly again in the spring on Crew 2. And then finally when we land, you know, the important thing after landing will be to review all the data from this flight. So the importance of getting the vehicle back, getting Bob and Doug safely back, is to then go assess the data on this flight. That sets us up for a Crew 1 mission as early as the end of September. And we'll go through the data methodically for that flight and make sure we're ready to start the operational flights. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Steve. I'll now hand it over to International Space Station Program Manager Joe Montalbano.
Thank you, Gary. Well, hello again, and welcome to the SpaceX Return Post-Flight Readiness Review Briefing. We had, as you heard, a great review today. We walked out of the review with no actions and just standard open work. So the team has done a tremendous amount of work. You can tell by what you heard today, and the team is ready to go. I mean, it's been great to have Bob and Doug on board, and they complimented the crew that came up on Soyuz in April. The fact that we were able to complete 4 EVAs and the tremendous amount of utilization, research, technology development. We worked cargo operations with the Japanese transfer vehicle. We had medical operations. I mean, these guys have just complimented significantly to the ISS team and to the ISS program and to NASA in general. You know, the work we're doing on board Space Station, the utilization, the research, the technology development, the work that's being done to help us for, you know, to go past low Earth orbit and help us with the Artemis program. It's just been outstanding. And the fact that we had 2 crew today is just a little view into the future. Eventually we'll have 4 crew on the Boeing and the SpaceX missions and increasing our science and research to about 70 hours a week of utilization, research, technology development. So we're just looking forward to that. I'll also remind you that this year we celebrate 20 years of continuous human presence on board the International Space Station. So with that, we look forward to the return of the SpaceX vehicle, Doug and Bob. And with that, I'll hand it back over to you, Gary. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Now for some final comments from Benji Reed over at SpaceX.
Really sincere thank you on behalf of all of the SpaceX employees, our vendors and contractors, all of our team that works together, to NASA, and of course to Bob and Doug and their families for allowing us the opportunity to return human spaceflight to the United States. As mentioned earlier, I think the administrator mentioned entry, descent, and landing, as we call it, EDL. Bringing a spaceship home, that's a really big deal, and it's very important. It's part of that sacred honor that we have for ensuring that we bring Bob and Doug back home to their families, to their kids, and making sure they're safe. So we give it the same attention as a team, both the SpaceX and the joint team with NASA. We give it that attention and that concern that we would for any launch. And we're very much looking forward to doing this. It'll be the first time in, I think, about 45 years that we have splashed down astronauts from space. So this will be another historic and great moment for the nation. So I think the next thing I'd like to do is actually show a little video we have talking about the mission so far.
Good morning, welcome aboard. Stand by for umbilical contract.
SpaceX Dragon, we're go for launch. Let's light the candle.
3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
On behalf of the entire launch team, thanks for flying with Falcon 9 today. We hope you enjoyed the ride and wish you a great mission.
We would like to welcome you aboard Dragon Endeavor. We do have a friend on board with us, the Apatosaurus.
I get goosebumps every time I do that. And I can only imagine what it's going to feel like when we bring those guys back home and they get to see their spouses and their kids. It's going to be amazing. As mentioned, I think everybody's talked about it. We had a successful flight readiness review for undock today with NASA, an agency-level review that went well. As we proceed into things, we'll be evaluating the weather. So kind of over the next 24 to 48 hours, we'll be looking at the weather, ensuring that we're really ready. We'll be doing that closely with NASA. Not only do we do these checkpoints, but there'll be a continuous monitoring process to ensure that we know that we've got safe weather to bring them home in, safe weather to splash down, and of course do the recovery operations and bring them back to land. As part of that, I think we have a little infographic that we can put up right now, and I'll just talk through a couple of items on that. So you can see in this graphic, and this is one of the great graphics that are available online as well to check out. But the first step that happens is you do a departure burn. You do an undock, automated undock, autonomous undock from station. Just like how we did the autonomous docking and undocking for Demo 1. We'll do the same thing, do an autonomous undocking for Demo 2 for this mission. Then there's a departure burn, and then we move into the phasing burns. So depending exactly on the launch, or the landing site, I should say, and the timing of everything, it depends on how many orbits we need to do, what the number of phasing burns are, and the timing of those. So that sequence really depends on ultimately where our landing sites will be on landing timing. Once we're ready to actually come home, the next step is the trunk jettison, and then the deorbit burn. And that deorbit burn lasts a number of minutes. It's actually one of the longest burns in the whole mission. And then we re-enter. And re-entry, there's the heat shield on Dragon. We use this, built up on our technology that we use for many of the missions on CRS, and of course on the Demo 1 mission we demonstrated on this Dragon 2 capsule. Because you get a lot of heating as you come in, and it's really critical that we keep crew and the vehicle safe from that heating. The heat shield and all of the thermal protection systems all around Dragon will keep them safe. We'll re-enter, and then the drogue parachutes will deploy, and then the main parachutes deploy, and then we splash down. After splashdown, we have the SpaceX recovery forces. I like to think of them as the SpaceX Navy. They get to go in and recover the crew. A couple of fast boats will go out, ensure that everything is ready to go, that the vehicle is safe to approach, checking for the hydraulic fuels, making sure there's no leaks. Everything looks ready to go, and there's fast boats there as a backup, and also doing parachute recovery. Once the fast boat gives the clear, then the main recovery vessel moves in, and will lift the capsule up onto the deck of the boat, into a nest, and then help Bob and Doug come out of the capsule and check them out and make sure they're okay. There it is. You can see that. It's in the clean room right here in Hawthorne, actually just a few feet away from me. And we look forward to getting that capsule ready to go, and it'll be shipping out of here in just the first or second week of August. So coming up very soon, that'll be ready to go, and then it'll finish final preparations down at the Cape. And of course, I mentioned there's 4 crew members, and I think we have an image of the 4 crew members. And there they are, Shannon and Victor and Mike and Soichi from the JAXA Space Agency. We're very excited to have this crew getting ready to go. They've been going through their training, wrapping up their final training. They're actually here in the building right now, doing some of their final work with us today and this week. And I mentioned Soichi is super exciting because it'll be our first time we have an international partner on board representing Japan and the JAXA Space Agency. So super cool to have that coming online. And once we go from this group, then we'll be moving on to Crew 2, which we're going to be ready to fly just 6 months later. As Steve Stitch mentioned, Crew 2 will actually be flying on the same vehicle that Bob and Doug are coming back home. That will be a refurbished vehicle. We'll be putting that through reuse, and look forward to that mission as well. Again, I just want to say thank you to NASA, to the nation, to the American public, to all the international partners, and just to everybody who's put all their heart and soul and time into this. We got the next big step to go to bring those guys home, and we're looking forward to making it happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Benji, and thank you to all of our panelists for those initial comments. We're now going to open it up for questions. Now, we have a lot of them, but if you don't, if you need to submit a question, just make sure you press *1. There's a lot of questions that we have to go through, as well as some of those initial comments. So if you find that your question has already been answered, just make sure to press *2 to address it. As I said, we do have a lot of questions to get through today in a limited time, so I do ask that you refrain to just one question. So we'll start it off with Lauren Grush from The Verge. Lauren.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. I'm curious about how much leeway you have when performing all the various maneuvers for leaving. So, for instance, what's the last possible moment before Crew Dragon's undocking where you can decide to call off the return and reschedule for another day? Also, how much leeway do you have to perform the deorbit burn in case conditions drastically change at the landing location? Thank you.
I'll take that one, Lauren. So for undock, really we have quite a bit of margin in terms of that decision process. As I said earlier, we really are trying to look at about 6 hours prior to undock if things are really lining up to be good to undock. And then another decision point a little closer in at 2.5 hours. That's really to prepare the vehicle and take a lot of the cargo in. There's a couple of freezers that are bringing home important science that we want to put in the vehicle. But literally we have about an hour period where we could undock, and if at the last minute we thought that the weather or something wasn't okay, the SpaceX team could command the vehicle and Bob or Doug could stop the whole undock sequence. And so the whole beauty of this sequence is that we can stay on station for a period of time and not get into free flight, and then save our opportunities. It's the same thing relative to the whole deorbit sequence after we've undocked and we're heading to our landing opportunity. Most of those are about, let's say, 15 to 17 hours after undock. We can then stop and pause before we execute that deorbit burn, and then go around again. Most of the wave off opportunities would be about 48 hours later, and we have roughly 3 days of consumables once we undock to try to bring the vehicle home.
Thank you for your question. We'll now move on to the next, Paul Brinkman from UPI. Paul.
Yeah, thanks for taking my question. I would really like to hear some more detail about the capsule tests during the flight and when attached to the space station. What was learned, especially what was learned during the habitability demonstration.
Yeah, I could take that one. So we did a habitability test, and really the purpose of that, this flight has 2 crew members on board, and so Bob and Doug had the opportunity to live in Dragon for the first part of the flight for about 20 hours or so. So that habitability test was really looking at this next flight that Benji talked about with our next crew, Crew 1. We'll have 4 people on board Dragon. And so what we did is we brought over additional crew members and had them in Dragon, and then we did a series of life in the day of Dragon. How would you prepare meals, different hygiene activities, how would you sleep in the seats, and tried to assess that and tried to learn from this vehicle for the next vehicle. And those tests went really well. There's a few things we're learning about how to package and how to stow various things for the crew to get to when they need them on orbit. But it was very successful, and so we take that data from that habitability assessment, we feed it back into Crew 1, and we'll make that flight even better for that crew. So.